Hey Isaac, this is Grandpa. Hopefully we can take advantage of this little video clip that I'm making. We're going to try something different today. It's kind of a next step kind of thing, which I think you'll like, and it has to do with what's called value. And all value really is how light or how dark something is. So do you recognize this picture here that we had you work on? At least I showed you last week in the demonstration. It's a sketch by Rembrandt, a very famous artist, and I'm going to use it again to show you the difference between light and dark. So let me zoom into it a little bit here. Make it just a little as big as I can anyway. Okay? So here's the picture, fairly big. And what I've done is I've cut out a little isolator piece of paper. It's got a hole in it. Can you see that? And I'm just going to look at parts of this picture, and we're going to try to decide whether that part, or how that part is, whether it's really dark or really light. Okay? So I'm going to start with a light part. Okay? So about right there. Can you see that? Pretty light. That would be a value with a small number, like maybe a 2 or a 3. They give all these lights and darks a value, kind of like notes on a piano, you know. So that's fairly light value. Now I'm going to shift over to here where he's done lots of scribbling on his picture, like right there. And you can see how dark that is, right? And if I go someplace kind of in the middle, that's kind of a middle value. This is probably the darkest spot on his picture. So just looking, I can go from fairly light to very dark to somewhere in the middle. And the way we accomplish that with a pencil is by creating a pattern. And I'm going to show you some patterns that we can use. And I'm also going to show you how to create your own little value scale. The idea is that you can use this to understand the idea behind value, but also, I'm going to ask you to create one of your own, a couple different ways, just like I'm going to show you here. And hopefully that'll help make sense of all of this. So if I was to zoom in really close on this picture, maybe I'll do that too, since I'm already here. Can you see that a little bit? I don't know if you can see it very well, but oh well, if you can see it, you can see that he's made the darks dark by drawing over and over and over again with his pencil. And not always in the same spot, but very close to each other. He's drawn lots of lines, some of them straight, some of them curved. And then if you look at the top there, towards the hat, you can see that he's made it light by drawing lines again, but he's left more space between the lines. So when your eye looks at it, like it did when I zoomed back a little bit, it made parts of the picture look very dark and parts of the picture look very light. Okay? And with a pencil, that's how you make different values, lights and darks, is by drawing lots of lines close together or making the lines further apart. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the kind of pattern that's most common. It's called hatching or cross hatching. So, and the way you do is you draw lines that are very close together and all go the same way. That's a hatch. And then if you come back over it with lines that go a different direction, that makes it a cross hatch. And then as I was saying over here, the more times that I go over that same space with lines that are kind of at a different angle, close together, but you see how it can just get darker and darker. Okay, that's called hatching or cross hatching. And what I want you to do with this kind of series of boxes is to make your own value scale. The idea is at the very top or bottom, we want this one to be your lightest value. That means basically I don't want you to draw in that box at all, because the lightest value you can get is by leaving the paper all alone, because the paper is white. And then here at the bottom, I want you to make this your darkest value. And the way you do that, like I just showed you, is by drawing as many lines, all different directions as you possibly can. And then we're going to try to make different values in between, so that when we're done, this goes from white or near white to black or near black. And those are the extremes in value. So I'm going to start here at the bottom, and I'm going to try to do this quick. You may not do it so quick, but I'm going one direction first, going another direction next, changing directions yet again. And I can do this as many times as I want until the more I draw, it just doesn't change. It doesn't make it any darker. I'm almost to the point where, you know, if I keep drawing, it just doesn't get any darker, because that's as dark as my lead. By the way, this is a 6B, one that you have, I think. Okay. So now I've got my lightest light and my darkest dark. And now I can go in the middle, which is right here. And I want to try to create a value by hatching that when you look at it, kind of looks like you're right in between. Like, you know, right in the middle of your dark, your darkest dark, and your lightest light. So I'm going to go a little slower here, but I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to cross hatch, and then I'm going to look at it, say, I think it needs to be a little darker. And maybe that is about in between. We'll see, okay? Now the next thing you do is go in the middle one again. So this is going to be my middle dark, right? It's right between my darkest dark and my middle, so that'll be my middle dark. And here's going to be my middle light. And I'm going to do my best to look at how dark and how light the ones on either side are and try to go in the middle. So I'm going to start up here in the middle, and I'm going to not push so hard with my pencil this time. What do you think? That somewhere in the middle? Now here, of course, because I'm on the dark side, I'm going to have to push harder and probably do more cross-hatching. It looks like I need just a little more, too. Something like that. It looks like about in the middle to me. Okay? And then once I've done that, of course, all I have to do is fill in the remaining squares. So I'm going to start on the top and work down. So here, my lines are going to be far between and very light. Okay? And now I'm going to make them heavier and maybe a little more cross-hatching. Something like that. Maybe I went a little too dark. So I'll darken that one up a little. Now this one's got to be pretty dark. Looks like I'm making it a little darker than I should have, so I'm going to make this a little darker too. And now I've only got one more to draw here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see the difference in those, but to me, that looks like all of the different values of light and dark that I can get from my lightest light to my darkest dark. And maybe I'm a little too dark here, I don't know. But you can try the same thing. Now, I have to move quickly on the next one because I'm probably running out of time on this video. But I want to do the same thing again, but on this last one, instead of cross-hatching, I'm going to use just different pencil leads. Okay, so you have, if I remember right, 4 different pencils, so you can use the lightest one and work on your way down to the darkest one. But we're just going to shade them from dark to light. So I'm going to start, my lightest one is still at the top, which is empty white, and using my darkest pencil, which is my 6B, I think it is yours too, I'm just going to keep drawing in the same box until it doesn't get any darker. Okay, should be about the same darkness as the one you just left. Using the same pencil, I'm going to go to the middle. Now for you, you're probably going to want to switch pencils because I only have 2 pencils, you have 4. So get one that's a little harder, like maybe the 4B or the 2B. And then you're going to come in here in the middle and you're just going to fill that one, that middle one in. Not cross-hatching, you're just going to fill it all in like you're drawing. Okay? And then you can take a lighter lead. I forget what your lightest one is, probably an H. And you can come up here at the top and use that to draw in that one. You know, maybe push a little harder with the same pencil and get something that's a little darker. And then a little darker yet. But just remember that when you want a darker shade, darker value, use a different pencil, okay? Because your pencils all have different kinds of leads in them. Some are softer and draw darker lines, and some are harder and draw lighter lines. So down here you're going to be using one of your darkest pencils, and you're just going to be pushing harder and harder on that pencil to get a darker value. You get kind of the same results whether you're cross-hatching or whether you're just shading with a pencil. Hopefully it looks kind of the same from light to dark. So the difference is using a pattern with your lead. Actually, this is the method I prefer, but some don't. And the other is just drawing with your pencil so close together that it just looks like one continuous color. And just using hard and soft pencil leads and pushing harder or softer, you can change the value. Now, let me just show you. If you go back to this picture that I've got over here, now let me just zoom out so you can see it all. Okay, one of the great things about drawing is that you can use these different values that I've showed you how to get to make your picture look fun and real. And before we were just seeing and drawing shapes, trying to make them the right shape and putting them in the right location relative to each other. We still have to do that. But after we've drawn our shapes, we can come back in and add value to make those shapes look more real. So if I was drawing this guy after I had found out where his shoulder was, I'd come in here maybe with a crosshatch, and I would do it with a really dark value. So I draw over it many, many times, just like Rembrandt did, to get a value that looks maybe as dark as this. And then on his hat, I would probably pick a value somewhere here and maybe draw fewer lines, make them further between, or not cross over the pattern so many times to make it so dark. And you try to match not only the shape and the location, now you're trying to match the value, or how light and how dark different parts of the picture are. And that way you can make a pretty picture.